say it now. Everybody say it now. Earth today.
Cool. So let's talk about creativity, man. Let's talk about creativity.
Yeah, creativity, where does it come from, right? That's the big question.
Yeah, exactly. I think talking about creativity as a seed is so interesting. That something that you can't manifest its growth, or I keep using that word. You plant a seed, right? And you can do all the things you can possibly do to nurture that growth. But at a certain point, you can't make it happen. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think, go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought.
Okay, so you have a garden, right? You plant your seed. And my question to you, Daniel, is what type of fence do you have built around your garden? Who are you allowing to let into your garden to help, share this creative space?
Right, because all it takes is one gnarly deer to come and dig up your seed and then it's gone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hard thing, is that being creative has restrictions. If you're going to do it right, you know what I mean? Like, you got to respect and nurture that.
Yeah, what a fragile process, hey? Like, you got to water it every day or pray for rain, and then you got to make sure that it's getting some light, some nourishment from the sun. And then the thing is, like, you can work so hard and then sometimes it doesn't fully germinate. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I put so much into this and it's just not coming to life.
Right. Well, and that even carries out through its life as being a gardener, is you got to get into the pruning, right? When it starts to break through the surface and actually start to flourish, there's going to be a storm that comes along, and you're going to have to make that tough decision of how to prune off that broken branch.
Okay, to that point, have you ever seen, like, so like they call them an arborist, right? Like, an arborist works specifically with trees, but have you ever seen like an aggressive prune job? So sometimes you'll have this really big epic tree and then it's aggressively pruned so that it basically is just stubs.
Yes.
It's like, you almost are thinking like, okay, was that really like an arborist that did that? Because that is pretty much like a dead tree now.
Yeah.
If you wait until that tree comes back into season, it explodes with new life, right? So like, the more aggressive the pruning and the almost like, it seems like the harsher the the work of the arborist, then the more life and new growth will come. And like, the blossoms and the branches are just way more healthy and way more vibrant.
Why is that?
This is the question. No, I think it makes sense, especially in the context that, like, there's actually this great parable about that, right? It's like, the biblical parables kind of unpack that. It's like, it says that God disciplines the people he loves, right? And like, sometimes you need to get like shorn down back to the basics, and just, it's humbling, right? You come to that place of humility where you're like, wow, everything that I had was just stripped off. But now it's just me and God, and now we get to do something new, right? And there's something about new creation and new life that comes from that.
And because the botanist or the gardener or the arborist, they intuitively know your story. They know that that might be good for you at that time. Well, God knows it'd be good for you at that time. But usually, most of us, when we're talking about our art now, us being the creator, we have intuition guiding us, going, this would be really good for the project. Because it's just tough though, because I feel like I want to talk about my struggle and how that can now be carried out into my art. Writing a song because I feel like my life's been pruned back.
Mm-hmm. There's almost the two sides, isn't there? There's like, the one side is, if I'm big into like Japanese garden and kind of like bonsais and everything. And the ones that grow the healthiest and the longest have fought through great crisis, essentially, right? Like they fought through all of the things that came against it, whether that was storms, certain types of weather, the soil dried out almost to completely blackening the roots, you know, but it hung on with that little bit of a deeper root into the side of the cleft of the rock, right? Where it was just hanging on the cliff, and then that little extra root was in there to the water source, drip, 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 and it just survived, right? But then it was able to flourish because it survived the harshest winters. And there's that side of it too, where it wasn't even necessarily all pruned back, but it just held on through a season. And then all of a sudden the sun comes back, the rains come back, and it's well rooted. And so it survives, right?
Right. And how do we rid ourselves?
I mean, there's no other place that you can put your deep roots down but into God and to his presence. Like, if you want to have the kind of life and even the kind of creativity that is actually alive and is connected to the source, like, I think you have to have your deepest roots connected to the heart of God.
And that goes so deep, because who is God, right? How did he choose? In what ways did he choose to carry out his story? You know what I mean? What tools or what gardening tools do we have to get our hands in the soil of who God is, what is his mission, all these different things, so that we can be imagers, you know, and be the ultimate, you know, let's say documentary filmmaker, the ultimate songwriter, because we're tapped in, hopefully, to the same source which is
the source of all life. And what's crazy too is the beautiful thing about God is that even when things or seeds actually physically die, they can come back, right? Like there's the side of like the pruning and the shearing and the maintenance side, right? And there's like, if you take it to a human context, there's discipline and there's care and the whole caregiving thing. And then there's time
and strictness.
Yeah.
With nurturing, there is strictness to be a good gardener. Continue.
So like there's structure and strictness and everything, but then ultimately every gardener is going to have a plant that dies, right? Even the best of them will be like, wow, I don't know what happened. That seed rotted, or, you know, some bird came and picked it out and took it to its nest or whatever, right? So there's going to be, for all of us, a seed that actually dies. But then the good news is that in the Bible, it says that unless a seed dies, it can't bear new fruit, new life. So unless it dies and then actually splits open and multiplies and then grows again, right? So right. Like nature and like a forest fire, right? It's like we fight the fires, but actually the oldest, most, what's going to become the best new growth is that seed that's been buried for a generation, and the heat of the fire cracks it open, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where the new life comes.
Through great pressure and heat and under great burden, right? Do you ever did you ever track the idea of the seed of Jesse? You know, generations being seeds. Right. Which is a metaphorical way to talk about ancestry.
Yes.
Right? Your seed passed on and grows. It's actually pretty beautiful. I wish that we said that in English.
Yeah.
You know, this is my seed. This is my plant. This is, you know, my beautiful daughter. You know, like,
yeah.
Look at her blossoming. Look at her grow.
That's right.
Which is actually, yeah, I think we're picking up on the same ideas. But the idea of the seed of Jesse, Israel was cut down. And it was just a stump left. I wish I was a better scholar so I could reference the verse.
Isaiah 53.
Pardon me?
Isaiah 53.
Right. Let's you know it better than I do. Can we read it together?
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, he was like a root out of dry ground, right?
Isaiah 53. Whoa, my computer knew. That's where we were going.
You want to read it?
It's coming up here. Just
verses, right?
Says, didn't say. Bible Gateway, sure. NIV, baby. All right, let's see if we got it. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm, the yod of the Lord has revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him. Nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Remember, absolutely. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and he held him in low esteem. And so the idea of tender shoot. So imagine a stump, Daniel, and there's that new hope, this fresh little green shoot coming out of, and the idea of the source of God's promise being his family, right? And tracing that and going, okay, that's been cut down. We need a new project. And it's this little vulnerable, whoever knew, you know what I mean? That from the ashes, from this hopeless situation. Oh, we're getting into some good stuff here.
Where it appeared to all perception that there was only death, right? Like when you literally clear cut a forest and then you come back 5 years later and you're like, those stumps have all become trees again, right?
Yeah, it's intentional to look to nature, to see the resilience, to see the fight, to see how nature prevails, and to use that as a way to talk about divinity.
Well, because they say there's basically, like, from a Christian worldview, there's basically two places where the good news of God is preached. It's preached in the scripture, which is like the living word of God, and it's preached in nature, which is the living word of God, right? Into being. In Genesis, it says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and that he actually spoke it all. So it's actually the manifestation of his word is nature. And so nature speaks, right?
Right. And the biggest distortion and tragedy is when human beings separate themselves from the creation. You know what I mean? Where our role in it is to be stewards. But we're still made from the dirt, and we're made, it's supposed to be I think when you're doing great art, you are in the holy hot spot. You know what I mean? That glimpse, the idea of being in the flow is a very divine place. And it's not divorced from nature. It's not, you're looking, it's a very focused experience, being in the flow, being in the holy hot spot. You know that exactly. What is it like, Daniel, being in the holy hot spot of a creative moment?
It's like, I totally know what you mean. It's like all of a sudden you enter this zone where you are certain that you're hearing from another realm, and it's not just you that's coming up with a creative idea. It's that creativity is being given to you, right? That's the zone, right? That's like that's where I think the book, The War of Art, it kind of unpacks that a bit. It's like all of a sudden it is this divine exchange, right? Where, like, if you want to say that creativity is the ultimate, to me, like, I would describe it as God made mankind in his image, and to actually bear his image is to be creative, because the very first thing he does is create. And ultimately the crown of his creation is you and I, humanity, which, like you said, is Adam dirt, right? We're dirt people. And he breathes his likeness, which is essentially creativity and a reflection of his living soul, his spirit, making us alive. And so when you're in that creative place, and like, you'd be hard pressed to find an artist who at least wouldn't have some form of spiritual reference to that place, right? Where they go like, yeah, there's something that is happening. There's some communication. There's some some of them use a lot of words like fairies and things, and all these things are happening. But like, I believe it's like God is downloading creativity to us because we're made in his image.
Downloading. I like using the computer metaphor. That's great. Because you're. I think that's the exciting thing about being, to seeing the story starting now. Mm-hmm. As Daniel, you're carrying on that hopeless, helpless shoot, right? You're carrying on that idea that we're the frontiers of the human project, you and I.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That what we're doing right now is new ground. Mm-hmm. And the world needs creativity, and it needs holy cow moments, eureka moments.
More than ever, I feel.
And how do you tap into that place? Leonard Cohen, the greatest songwriter who ever lived, said during a presentation, if I could only live where the great songs are. If me, Leonard Cohen, could only live where the great songs are. Mm-hmm. And like that's such a cry of desperation. Mm-hmm. That, and also a tragedy that we can't live there. Mm-hmm. As humans. We only can stand in that beautiful hot spot for so long until we need to go back into the known world.
Interesting.
With a handful of plunder. Mm. So we go into this cave of beautiful, majestic, holy hotspot moment of creativity, and all we can leave is just a handful. Mm. But the handful is proof that there is a cave of wonder, mm-hmm. Just this little thing. And I guess that would be the seed as well. Yeah. Continue.
That's what Aladdin was all about. Hey, the Cave of Wonders. You could just come out with the one piece was the genie in the bottle, right? But once you open that up, there's a whole other world inside of it. I think there's like so many films and stories and artists and things that refer back to this place of just locked away hidden zone of creativity that we have this desire humanly to access it, right? And I guess the question is, like with the Leonard Cohen story, is could you possibly live in that place?
And for the greatest, I believe the greatest songwriter, that he can't live there and sees himself as a vessel, is, I think, give up and appreciate your limitations,
Don't live there full time. Is that what you're saying?
Or, get a little bit of, calibrate what you're capable of. So when you're there, you respect it.
How about from this perspective too, is like, what if you only stayed in that place and didn't take those gold nuggets to the world, right? Mm-hmm. What if you hoarded all of that goodness to yourself in that place and didn't actually give that away to the world? And I think that's the ultimate call of creatives, right? Is to be a creator is to release something from that heavenly kingdom, if you will, into the world and bringing heaven to earth, right? And I mean, every great song and film and art piece, and even like if it's a building, whatever the art form is, right? Whatever display of creativity with the hands or with the mind becoming a reality, that's like a gift to the world, right? And if you just hold it on for yourself and you say, no, I'm staying in that place, that's a selfish place, right? It's like you're getting all that revelation, but you're not giving it away.
And think about the three servants in the master parable, where one servant digs and hides the gold, the beautiful gift, and hides it. Mm-hmm. And when the master comes back, he goes, "What have you done, you silly servant?" And he goes, "Well, I wanted to make sure no one would steal it," or all these excuses, right? Story I'm referencing. The thing is, the word called investment. We're meant to invest. It's supposed to grow in currency. It's supposed to be something that's a gift. Life's a gift that's meant to be shared.
Yes. Totally agree. And I think there's a coming time in a kingdom where where we will just be in that place all the time. That is heaven, right? It's like,
That's a hope. That's a hope for sure. Yes.
but I mean, in this current atmosphere where we live, we're meant to go to that place and then give things to the world. Like I think that could possibly be one of the great definitions of creativity.
And if I was going to break it out down another way, is the realm of the known world. What happens when you have a thirst and hunger for the divine, or for the, let's call it the great eureka, to go for that holy moment, is to actually go into the unknown, right? The idea of going into the cave. I think there's something about that orientation, the idea of deep within you, right? You find the beauty that you give to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like that story is a very helpful way to look at it. Almost looks like I'm doing some sort of yoga, but it is. It's just such a beautiful place. And I'm pointing at my heart right now, because I feel like that's where people say that. It's like, speak from your heart, be creative. What is your heart? What are the truths of your heart that you're willing to share?
Mm-hmm.
What a struggle to go there.
Absolutely.
And what a hero's journey to go there and come back with triumph that you're able to make it through that cycle.
Well, and there's this powerful picture in like Christianity of what is it that you're cultivating at your roots. And you take that Isaiah 53 and you talk about the roots, right? In the spiritual sense, the root of a person is the heart, and the spirit is the center. Actually, in Hebrew and in that culture, like the center of a person is the heart and the spirit. The heart and the spirit dwell together. So what are you cultivating in the heart and spirit that you're allowing to become the fruit of your life, right? Because
the fruit of the spirit.
That's the fruit comes out of that spirit. So if you don't cultivate a spirit of God's kingdom in a healthy place, then you're still going to bear fruit, but it's not going to be the fruit of God's kingdom.
Which is?
Well, the fruit of the kingdom is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, all these. When you think about it, I mean, like someone who loves their neighbor is never going to abuse their neighbor, right? If everyone loved their neighbor, the whole world would be loved. And like love is never abusive, it never steals, it never covets, it never does all those things that happen in the world, right? And so if everyone was cultivating that place in their heart where God can live inside at the center of a person, so that your root is that bonsai on the cleft of the rock going into his heart, right? Where it's like the deepest place is into God. If the deepest place of you is into God, the fruit of your life is going to actually be healthy, beautiful. It's going to nurture people. It's going to nourish people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
mm-hmm.
Contrary, if you might have really deep roots, but it might not be connected to God and to the source, right?
You would have rotten fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the idea of something that looks beautiful to the eye, but really, when you bite into it, it's rotten, kind of idea. And we say that about, even in our language today, it's like, oh, so-and-so, they're such a rotten person.
Right.
Or, wow, Daniel is such a pure person. Well, like, where is the source of that? And one thing I want to bring up back to the beginning of our conversation was the idea of the story of the tree that was pruned back. And it was just the stub left. Luckily, the one that you mentioned there was a tree that had a strong root system. Because one of the biggest rules in botany is the root system in the canopy must be in equilibrium, must be balanced. So the tree is going to do as much as it can to balance that system. It's built into the tree. You know what I mean? And so the root system was already built up. But if you do that to a plant that hasn't established a root system, you're going to lose that tree.
Wow.
Right? And even within that, there's certain types of trees at certain types of times of its growth that doing that's even going to be a bad idea. You might do it in the wrong season. When you prune, You are an artist and a scientist because you might theoretically know how to prune the tree at the right angle, right? But the thing is, as soon as you do it, it becomes art. As soon as you meddle or work with nature, you become an artist.
What a creative risk, eh?
Huge creative risk because there's no certainty. You know what I mean? If you're going to help somebody go through a hard time, there's no guarantee that your song or your creative way of encouraging them to get through a hard time is going to work.
So if we're on the botany train, there's probably a few key elements to healthy trees and healthy roots, right?
What is it?
There's the soil that you plant, right? So
yes.
the soil you plant in, and like you can add fertilizer, you can add little shots to the root system, but ultimately the native soil, right? Like you can try to change out the native soil, but you always have to keep some of that native soil in there. And so you've got that picture, right? Of like, okay, what is your native soil? And what kind of fertilizers and root boosters and things are you shooting in there to give it that extra health and life and vibrancy, right?
As a nurturing caregiver, you can choose to do that, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got the soil, then obviously you have the actual exposure to the light, right? I think the exposure to the light is the ultimate thing. Is like, so my in-laws have a certain vine that's against a building. It doesn't get very much sunlight, but they had Christmas lights on the vine. And whenever those Christmas lights would come on at night, they were putting light out. And in the spring, about 3 weeks before any other, and in fact, this is happening right now. So there's no other leaves on this vine, except there's leaves where those little Christmas lights were. So the exposure of just the light from that Christmas light has caused it to blossom, right? And it's starting to put out little flowers, right? So where is your sun exposure, right? Like, are you in full sun? Are you in half sun, shade sun? What is your light exposure? That's a huge piece.
And it's so beautiful how thirsty we are for light. I'm using that as a metaphor, but the idea of the plant intuitively knows and leans its leaves towards where the light is. It's such a beautiful image. So all these different things we know that can help us better understand how to cultivate, how to nourish, how to also within the realm of being strict and knowing when to prune, when to uproot, when to what, and then the really the macro going, maybe we should let the weeds and the plants grow together with this particular plant. There's so much to know.
Oh, okay. This brings up a really great point you just made me think of, is that every single plant is unique, right?
Absolutely.
There is no one way. Like, sure, there's like core oversight of like how a plant works, right? So, and that's like in the God realm of like, he made it in his image, or he made it special, he made it unique. But then when you go dig deeper into that, every single variety is unique. Everyone needs different style of sun and shade, different style of soil, different kind of nutrient. They also then have a different flower, right? They have a different branch shape. They have a different creative expression. And that is absolutely critical, is to not think that we're all the same, right? I mean, that's creativity. If we were all just the same plant, same soil, I mean, how exciting would that be, right? We're meant to be part of a massive garden where all of us make a piece of it to come together.
A beautiful mosaic.
Yes.
A beautiful, beautiful mosaic. And I think that's a good way. We could keep talking probably. I think we're pretty deep into it, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
But I just marvel at the idea of the native soil, right? And how sometimes the native soil is a very sandy composite, where you would think, oh, that's not a very good, lush soil to have my plant take. But with foresight and experience and knowledge and being a master botanist, a master songwriter, a master filmmaker, Okay, everyone, calm down. Take a moment here. Shema. The right decision is to use the sand. And people are going to think that you're on some sort of death wish. But trust and self-control and all of a sudden these ideas of the Spirit help us become great participants in your journey.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like God is like the one that runs the nursery that sells you the thing and says, this is how to care for it, right? Like, just be sure that you put it in sandy soil where there's actually going to be a well-drained situation and the roots aren't going to drown, and make sure you use this particular type of fertilizer with this much nitrogen and just do it this way. And we go, oh, well, I don't want to do it your way because like your rules are too whatever. But it's like, no. These are rules for living well. These are a scenario created by God that actually makes the whole plant flourish. So follow these rules and life will be amazing, right? Like life and growth and seasons will happen, and like it's gonna actually work if you follow this, right?
You'll live. It might be tough, but you're gonna live through the tough seasons. Mm-hmm. What I'm doing with you is I'm working on your root system.
Right. I'm letting you become the bonsai on the rock that just has the root that goes and touches me, right?
So that people from all over the world will look at your beauty and go, how is it living? You know what I mean?
Like, that's the ultimate thing is like, so if you're a creative artist and you're listening to this, is like, God wants to be at the core of your root system so that you can keep getting the nourishment and you can also keep being attached to his source for new creativity, new ideas, new thoughts, like stuff that will actually give you life, right? Because as we can attest as artists, is like when you're in the zone, that's when you're the most alive, right? You go, wow, you suddenly become aware in this mountaintop experience that you are connected to the source, but that doesn't mean that he's not there when you don't feel that connection, right?
Right.
So you have these moments of like, wow, I'm so connected right now to the source. But like you're saying, he's creating a root system in you so that you have those moments where it's like, boom, the flower blooms, right? But then there might be 8 months and it doesn't bloom, right? So you just have to be connected to that source because the life's coming back, the sun's coming back, the soil's getting cared for. You're going to bloom again.
Yes. And why does it matter? Why does it matter to bloom? To care for the vulnerable, to care for the most unlikely sick. Your fruitful season will be such life for where there was no life. It is essential, you know what I mean? That it's a gift.
Oh,
now that's another great tragedy in the story is when you become fruitful, right? And for some reason, there's a beautiful saying, and it says, be fruitful and multiply. To me, it's such a tragedy when somebody looks at that as just being something about having babies, you know what I mean? Or spread the kingdom of God. Those are the same ideas. Being fruitful and multiplying and spreading or sharing the kingdom of God are the same idea. What does the kingdom look like? What does your root system look like? What does love look like? Is it giving to the vulnerable? Or is it just something you give to people you choose, right?
Okay, so what your picture points to for me is you cultivate, you do the soil, you do the fertilizing, you water, you get the sun exposure, you become that beautiful fruit or that beautiful flower, right? Well, what's meant to happen at that point? I just bought flowers at the store, so I can think of this is right when it's the most beautiful, or perhaps just before it's the most beautiful, it's meant to be cut off. So it's meant to be given as a gift to the world, right? Back to that creativity, the outlet of you go into that place, you get that amazing thing. Are you willing to give it away, right? So if your life is that flower, are you willing to flourish so that you can be cut off and given to the poor? So you can be cut off and given to the vulnerable, so that you can be cut off and given to bring a smile to an orphan or a widow, like you take all those different pictures of like, also, if you don't cut that off at such a time as when it's just going into that bloom, the next bud that's just about to come up to blossom, it'll be stunted, right? There's an amazing thing about if you cut it at the right time, like my mother-in-law does dahlias. If you cut it at the right time in the right location, boom, another flower, boom, another flower. And all of a sudden multiplies into bouquets of flowers, right?
We're talking about abundant life.
Abundant life. So you have to take that download from God and then give it away. You have to let your life be connected to that root source and then blossom so you can give it away.
Absolutely. Once again, life is a gift that's meant to be shared. But within the rules of that, there are elements and certain types of insectivores and types out there that are not going to accept your beautiful pearl. So I just want to end this with a little bit of realism for everybody, and realizing that your gift may be trampled on.
Like a rose trampled on the ground, he took a fall and thought of you above all. Like the greatest gift we could ever possibly receive, the gift of God's Son, Jesus, was crushed like a rose on the ground, right? He was despised, rejected. People spat on him. He was thrown into the dirt, right? And he became the seed that died so that it could become new life, so that it could come back.
Once again, wow. Because that's what a bird's eye perspective gives you, right? Even within that beautiful model is going, I can't live where the beautiful songs are. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's what's happening right now. It's like, you have to rely on the idea that this is all part of a greater whole. That his idea of dying on that cross or going through that story was because he knew it would bring the abundance to the world that has never seen before. We're talking like the ultimate takeover.
The ultimate explosion of multiplication in life, right? And I think just adding to your point about realism, it's like you might end up being a part of that side of the story. Where
so tragic.
That's heavy, right? Is like, what if you feel like you were the flower that was cut at the wrong time and the next one wasn't about to bloom, right? What if you feel like you were that trampled rose petal, you know? And you have to know and believe that even if you're cut off and separated, you can be grafted back in. You can be connected back to the source of life, you know?
And if anything, with a greater story.
It's really good news.
Amen, brother. To that.
That's good
and
news.
So go out there and have that thirst to be creative. And also remind yourself that life's a gift that's meant to be shared. Daniel, thanks for this combo.
It was nice to chat again.
Yeah, it sounds good.
We can talk about love.